She destroyed my trash can 57 times with her $60,000 Escalade. So I replaced it with a concrete one and watched her destroy her own SUV instead. What started as petty neighborhood bullying ended in criminal charges, a $12,000 settlement, in one unforgettable lesson about picking the wrong neighbor to mess with. Asterisk, asterisk, the sharp crack of plastic shattered the calm Ohio morning, followed by the metallic scrape of bumper against asphalt. I froze mid-sip of coffee, staring out the window as my brand-new trash can lay sideways, garbage spilling like confetti across the driveway. And there she was, Brenda Whitmore, backing her pearl-white Escalade away, with that trademark smirk, pretending nothing happened. The woman didn't even glance at me, just waved casually, as if running over your neighbor's property was part of her morning workout. My name's Marcus Holloway, 45 years old, licensed electrician, and recently divorced. 3 months ago, I bought this corner lot house in Pinewood Gardens, one of those perfect lawn HOA neighborhoods where even the mailboxes come in approved colors. I wanted peace. A safe place for my 2 kids, Emma and Tyler, to visit on weekends. What I got instead was a front-row seat to suburban insanity. That first hit happened on a Tuesday at 6:15 a.m. sharp. I remember because the garbage truck usually rolled through around 6:35, 20 minutes early. 20 minutes that would change everything. I rushed outside in pajama pants and bare feet, heart hammering like I'd just heard a gunshot. The trash can was mangled beyond repair, lid twisted, wheels gone. Banana peels sliding down the driveway like greasy evidence. Brenda lowered her window with mock concern. "Oh my, Marcus," she said, voice dripping with fake sympathy. "These streets are so narrow. You really should be more careful where you place your bin." Narrow. You could drive a fire truck through that lane. I forced a smile, pretending it was fine. "Accidents happen," I told her, while every muscle in my jaw begged to clench. She smiled back, that sweet, patronizing grin people wear when they know they've just gotten away with something. After she drove off, I cleaned for 20 minutes, hands sticky with old coffee grounds, wondering if maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it really was an accident. I replaced the can that same afternoon, told myself to let it go. But when it happened again 2 days later, same time, same sound, I knew better. By Friday, she'd done it 4 times. For every collision precise, deliberate, cruel. I even caught a reflection in my car window one morning, eyes locked on me, smiling as the plastic cracked. That smile told me this wasn't about space or safety. It was about power. My elderly neighbor across the street, Mrs. Olivia, confirmed it when she whispered over her fence. "She goes out of her way, dear. Plenty of room on the other side." That was the moment the switch flipped. The quiet, peace-loving dad disappeared, replaced by the man who fixes problems for a living, and I had just discovered my newest project, because if Brenda Whitmore wanted a war over a trash can, she was about to learn something her Escalade never would. Some things in this neighborhood wouldn't bend. They'd break her first. Asterisk, by the second week, I'd stopped asking if she'd hit it again and started wondering when. Every Tuesday, like clockwork, 6:15 a.m. The neighborhood's peace shattered by the crunch of plastic under steel. It became a ritual, almost predictable, like Brenda's private demolition derby, starring my trash can as the victim. I tried moving the bin 2 feet left, then 2 feet right. I even placed bright orange cones beside it one morning, thinking maybe visibility was the issue. She didn't care. In fact, she seemed to take it as a challenge. Each morning, I'd hear that same low engine rumble, followed by the sound of impact and the squeal of tires as her Escalade darted off into the sunrise. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining the smirk, but Mrs. Olivia confirmed it one morning while watering her roses. "She slows down before she hits it," she said quietly. "Looks right at your house first." That was the day I realized this wasn't random. This was deliberate. A message. I tried reasoning with her once. Caught her mid-afternoon while she was doing her usual neighborhood patrol, clipboard in one hand, coffee mug in the other. "Hey, Brenda," I started carefully, "about the trash can thing." She cut me off mid-sentence, her lips curling into that same practiced smile. Marcus, you're new to community living. These streets weren't designed for oversized containers. Maybe try placing it out later in the morning. We don't want to block traffic flow. At Lou a.m. The only traffic was her. I swallowed my frustration and nodded, though inside my thoughts were electric. Placement timing adjustments, she said it like some corporate memo. It was the HOA's favorite phrase, used when they wanted you to obey without questioning that night. After the kids went to bed, I sat at my desk with a mug of cold coffee and started researching. City ordinances, HOA bylaws, property rights. Turns out, trash cans placed within 3 feet of the curb on collection day were completely legal, even protected as personal property. And nowhere did it say what they had to be made of. By the end of the week, I'd replaced 4 trash cans. $92 gone. But something far more valuable had shifted my patience. The next time I heard that early morning engine, I didn't rush outside. I stood by the window, arms folded, and just watched. She looked straight at me as the front bumper lined up with the bin. And for a moment, I swear she smiled wider, a silent dare. The can toppled, scattering trash across my driveway once more, but this time, I didn't feel anger. I felt calculation, because I finally understood what kind of neighbor I was dealing with, and I wasn't planning to play defense anymore. If she wanted a game of persistence, she'd just picked the wrong opponent. Asterisk, the next blow didn't come from her bumper. It came in an envelope. A thick, cream-colored letter sat in my mailbox like a bad omen. Embossed with the Pinewood Gardens HOA logo, it smelled faintly of toner and arrogance. Inside, a formal violation notice printed on expensive paper, improper trash receptacle placement creating obstruction of vehicular flow, 72 hours to comply or face daily fines. $50 a day. I stared at the signature line, Brenda Whitmore, HOA Compliance Committee. Of course, she'd turned her morning hobby into official business. That evening, I showed the letter to my kids. Emma just rolled her eyes. Dad, she's obsessed. Tyler, ever practical, asked, can we move? She's crazy, I forced a chuckle, hiding the anger boiling behind my smile. Not yet, buddy. We don't run from bullies. We outsmart them. That night, I started digging deeper. And I mean deep city archives, HOA bylaws, municipal codes. I read case studies, legal blogs, even watched late-night lawyer videos on YouTube. Turns out, Brenda's fancy violation had more holes than a power line left in a rainstorm. The truth hit me like voltage. The HOA had zero authority over the public right-of-way. My trash can was perfectly placed within city code. Her violation letter? Completely unenforceable. But that wasn't enough. I needed proof, concrete, undeniable evidence. So I bought a Ring doorbell camera. $47. Peace of mind included. The next morning, it recorded everything. For a few days after that HOA meeting, Brenda went quiet. No morning collisions, no smug waves, no letters taped to my door. The silence almost felt suspicious, the kind of calm that comes right before a thunderstorm. I should have known she was reloading Thursday morning. I walked out to grab the mail and found a brand new notice pinned to my porch column. Same fancy letterhead. Same signature. Different accusation. Unauthorized property maintenance resulting in visual disharmony with community standards. Visual disharmony. I stared at those words, laughing under my breath. My crime. Repainting my mailbox in the exact same shade as before, I started to see the pattern. Every time I proved her wrong, she found a new rule to twist. When she couldn't use her car to crush my peace, she used paperwork. And the HOA board, or at least her little group within it, let her. But here's the thing about people like Brenda. They always overplay their hand. That weekend, she posted a long, self-righteous rant on the neighborhood Facebook page. Certain homeowners are creating unsafe conditions and visual clutter that reduce our community's property values. No names. No proof. Just enough breadcrumbs for the neighbors to guess who she meant. Within hours, the comments section turned into a digital battlefield. Half the residents defended her. The other half told her to mind her business. Then something unexpected happened. Someone uploaded the video from the HOA meeting. The video? My ring footage now playing to an audience of hundreds. The clip went viral in our little suburb. Every crunch, every smirk, every smug escape, captured in high definition. The caption read, HOA Karen caught red-handed, literally running over her neighbor's trash can. By Sunday evening, Brenda's name was trending on the local community forum. Trash can terror, one post called her. Escalade of shame, said another. Even Mrs. Olivia had shared the video with the comment, sometimes justice sounds like crunch. The next HOA meeting was standing room only. Neighbors packed the room, whispering, smirking, some even filming. Brenda sat at the board table, trying to maintain composure, but her hands trembled as she flipped through her notes. When the president asked if there were any further concerns, I simply said, not for me. My trash can's doing fine. The laughter that followed cracked her last ounce of control. She slammed her folder shut and stormed out. Red-faced, muttering something about ungrateful residents and low standards. But I didn't celebrate, because I could see it in her retreat that wasn't surrender. It was retreat with a plan, the kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It means plotting, and I had the uneasy feeling that the next time Brenda struck, she wouldn't aim at my trash can, she'd aim straight at me, and this time, she wasn't coming with just a vehicle. She was coming with vengeance. Asterisk, the silence didn't last long. Bullies never take humiliation quietly, they reload, re-strategize, come back meaner. A week after Brenda's public meltdown, the war shifted from the street to the paperwork battlefield. I woke up Monday to 3 fresh violation letters, all dated the same day. Lawn height exceeds 2.5 inches. Mailbox color fading below approved shade range. Window screens showing visible wear. Petty? Absolutely. But expensive, too. Each carried a $50 fine, and each had the same signature at the bottom, Brenda. Whitmore? It was obvious what she was doing. Death by 1,000 citations. The goal was in order. It was exhaustion. She wanted me to give up, to move, to vanish quietly like the others she'd bullied before me, but she'd picked the wrong guy for that. I spent the next Saturday walking the neighborhood with a tape measure, notebook, and camera phone. My mission: collect evidence. Gerald, the HOA president who'd look the other way at every meeting. His grass 3 inches tall. Mrs. Patterson's mailbox faded to shades lighter than mine. Half the houses on Maple Street, ripped window screens from last summer's hailstorm. Yet, none of them had received violation notices. Not one. When I got home that evening, covered in grass clippings and sunburn, I laid out the photos across my kitchen table like a detective building a case. The pattern was crystal clear. Brenda wasn't enforcing community standards. She was enforcing personal grudges. Tuesday morning, typed up a formal complaint citing selective and discriminatory enforcement. I attached my photos, measurements, timestamps, everything. Then, just for fun, I CC'd every single homeowner on the street. Within hours, my inbox exploded with replies. Some were shocked. Some were furious. Most were relieved someone had finally said it out loud. But here's where the story takes a turn. That same afternoon, while buying electrical supplies at Home Depot, I met a man who unknowingly handed me the spark for my greatest revenge idea yet. His name was Dale. A grizzled concrete contractor with hands like sandpaper and a grin that said he'd seen things. When I told him about my trash can troubles, he chuckled and said, "You know, there's no law about what your trash can's made of. Metal, plastic, concrete, as long as it holds garbage, it counts." I blinked, the thought hitting like a live wire. Concrete. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Brenda's Escalade slamming into something that wouldn't just survive, it would win. For weeks, she'd been trying to break me. Maybe it was time to give her something unbreakable in return. I looked out the window at the curb, where my 5th plastic can sat, dented and defeated under the streetlight glow. And for the first time in months, I smiled, because tomorrow, Brenda's favorite morning ritual was about to meet 60 pounds of reinforced justice. Asterisk Friday night smelled like sawdust, sweat, and quiet revenge. I cleared space in the garage, rolled up my sleeves, and opened the first bag of 60-pound concrete mix. The powder rose in the air like smoke. Settling on my workbench under the flickering fluorescent light, Emma and Tyler stood in the doorway, watching curiously. "Dad, are we really making a trash can out of concrete?" Emma asked, half laughing. "Not out of it," I said, pouring the gray dust into the wheelbarrow. "Inside it." Tyler grinned. "Like armor?" "Exactly," I said. "We're upgrading." Spent the evening mixing and pouring like a small construction crew. Classic rock hummed from my old radio, and for the first time in months, laughter filled the garage instead of stress. Tyler handled the water hose. Emma stirred, and I shaped the rebar skeleton that would turn my garbage bin into a suburban fortress. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about taking back control. Every scoop of wet cement felt like reclaiming a piece of peace she'd stolen. By midnight, it was done. Hollow bottom for drainage. Perfect dimensions. The concrete sat inside the shell of a regular plastic bin, looking deceptively normal. From the outside, it was just another trash can, but inside, it was solid, immovable, ready as the mix cured overnight. I sipped cold coffee and imagined the scene. Brenda in her shiny pearl-white Escalade, revving up for her usual 6:15 a.m. hit, smiling that same smug smile. Right before physics delivered her first reality check, Monday morning arrived, crisp and quiet. I rolled the reinforced bin to its usual spot, 3 feet from the curb, just like city code required. Then I brewed my coffee, opened the blinds, and waited. 6:14, the familiar rumble of her engine echoed down the street. Right on schedule, I could see her face through the windshield, focused, confident, predator mode. She lined up her vehicle like she'd done dozens of times before, a private ritual of control and ego and then impact. The sound was nothing like before. No crunch of plastic, no toppled bin. Just a deep, solid thunk, followed by the metallic scream of her bumper giving up. Her SUV jerked backward, hood dipping in shock, as if even it couldn't believe what it had just hit. She froze. Then, unbelievably, tried again, harder this time. The Escalade's front corner crumpled like tinfoil. The trash can didn't even wobble. From my kitchen window, the next morning, the neighborhood felt different, like the air itself knew something had shifted. Birds still chirped, sprinklers still hissed across perfect lawns. But there was an undertone of tension, like the calm before a courtroom verdict. At 6:15 a.m. sharp, the sound returned. Only this time, it wasn't the crisp crack of plastic. It was metal shrieking against concrete, a tortured, grinding wail that made me wince, even as satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Through the window, I saw Brenda's pearl-white Escalade jolt backward. A long dent carved across the bumper, the headlight cracked, the license plate hanging like a loose tooth. She slammed her steering wheel, eyes wide in disbelief. The mighty HOA queen had finally met something tougher than her ego. She stepped out, heels clicking on the pavement, staring at the can like it had personally insulted her. From my window, I watched her circle it, fuming. She kicked it once and immediately regretted it. Limping back to her car, for the next few days, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd back off. But people like Brenda don't retreat. They rebrand their obsession. First came the Facebook posts. Unstable resident constructing unsafe trash receptacles. Possible code violations endangering neighborhood safety. Then came the flyers, printed in color, slipped into mailboxes. She called me a hazard to community integrity. Her campaign of control had gone public, and it was only making her look worse. The neighbors weren't buying it anymore. The ring footage had already circulated, and my reinforced can had become something of a legend. Mrs. Rodriguez from down the street even started calling it the Iron Throne. But Brenda wasn't laughing. A few nights later, Mrs. Olivia called me, her voice trembling. "Marcus, I saw her. She was in your driveway with a flashlight, At what time? I asked, past midnight. She had something like a scale, or I don't know. She was touching your trash can. I actually laughed out loud. The mental image of Brenda, crouched beside my trash can in her power suit, trying to weigh it like some kind of forensic scientist, was absurd. But beneath the humor was something darker. Obsession had replaced reason. By Thursday, she'd called the city's inspection office, claiming illegal construction of concrete structures on residential property. An inspector showed up, clipboard in hand, already exhausted. "It's a trash can," he said after a 30-second look. "Not a building. No code violations." Failed attempt made her spiral further. She filed more complaints, called for emergency HOA meetings, even showed up at the community center demanding a safety audit. And all the while, her Escalade bore the scars of her own stubbornness: a crushed bumper, a cracked fender, and paint scraped off like regret. What she didn't realize was that every desperate move, every public outburst, every late-night trespass was being recorded quietly, legally, perfectly, because while she was busy unraveling, I was busy preparing, and the truth I was about to uncover would make her little tantrums look like child's play. Asterisk. It started with a whisper, a quiet conversation that cracked open a secret bigger than any HOA rule. One Saturday morning, while grabbing coffee at the community center, Patricia Lopez, one of the quieter board members, pulled me aside. Her voice was low, eyes darting toward the door like we were planning a heist. "Marcus," she said, "you need to know something. Brenda's not just enforcing rules, she's profiting from them." First I thought she was exaggerating. Brenda already got her power fixed by bossing people around. Money seemed to organized for her brand of crazy. But Patricia continued, sliding a folded printout into my hand. "She's been pushing repair contracts, landscaping, playground maintenance, sidewalk touch-ups, all to one company, Whitmore Construction." The name hit me like a breaker tripping mid-circuit. "Whitmore? As in her husband?" Patricia nodded. "She's never disclosed it to the board. I think she's been using HOA funds for personal gain." That night, I sat in front of my laptop until well past midnight, digging through public records, business registries, and contractor filings. And there it was in black and white: Whitmore Construction LLC, established just 6 months ago. Registered owners, Brenda Whitmore to 40%. Her husband Richard to 60%. It wasn't just a business. It was a siphon every maintenance project the HOA approved for budget efficiency. Funneled money straight into their pockets. Landscaping, $3,800. Sidewalk repairs, $2,900. Playground renovations, $6,200. All approved by a board. Brenda controlled. And guess when her harassment campaign against me started? 2 weeks after I'd questioned the inflated maintenance fees at a board meeting. My trash can hadn't been her target, I had. Because I'd come too close to uncovering her little empire of fraud, I leaned back in my chair. The screen light flickering across the room, connecting the dots like wires across a circuit board. This wasn't about rules or aesthetics or garbage placement. This was about money, about control. By dawn, I'd compiled a digital folder thick with screenshots, contracts, meeting minutes, and payment records. The pattern was undeniable. Brenda had weaponized her authority to silence anyone who questioned her paper trail. When I emailed the file to my lawyer, Amanda Sterling, her reply came within minutes. "This isn't a dispute, Marcus. It's a criminal investigation waiting to happen." I stared at the glow of that email, heart pounding. For months, Brenda had played chess while I'd been stuck playing checkers. But not anymore. Now I had evidence. Now I had allies. Now I had leverage. And as the morning light spilled through the blinds, catching the edge of that indestructible concrete trash can outside, I realized something poetic: that can wasn't just built from concrete. It was built from proof, and soon, the woman who tried to crush me with lies was going to be buried under her own. Asterisk, the night before the HOA board meeting, my garage looked less like a workspace and more like a detective's war room. Papers taped to the walls. Red string connecting payment timelines. Copies of checks, invoices, and emails pinned like a criminal map. Mrs. Olivia brought her thermos of tea. Jim, our maintenance guy, showed up with a clipboard full of statements from neighbors. Patricia arrived last, clutching an overstuffed binder, official HOA documents she'd quietly borrowed from the office. I glanced around the room at my unlikely little army. Tomorrow, I said, we stop being victims. They nodded. The quiet kind of agreement that comes from exhaustion and resolve. The next evening, Pinewood Gardens Community Center was packed to capacity. Folding chairs filled every corner. Neighbors leaned against the walls, whispering. Even the local news van had parked outside, reporters ready to film the suburban showdown. Brenda entered fashionably late, heels clicking like gunfire on tile. Her trademark navy blazer had been replaced with black, the color of control. She didn't look at anyone, just walked straight to her seat beside the HOA president, Gerald Thornfield, who already looked like a man regretting every decision he'd ever made. The meeting started with routine, announcements, minutes approved, budgets reviewed, all background noise to the storm brewing in the room. Then Gerald cleared his throat. Next, we'll address ongoing community concerns raised by Mr. Marcus Holloway. Eyes turned to me. I stood, holding my binder and a small remote in my hand. Thank you, Mr. President, I said, calm and steady. I'd like to talk about two things tonight. Property destruction and financial misconduct. The projector screen flickered to life. The first clip played ring footage of Brenda's Escalade slamming into my trash can. The crunch echoed through the speakers, followed by the gasps of 50 people watching. That, I said, pausing the frame, was the fourth of 57 documented collisions. Everyone intentional. Everyone recorded. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Brenda shifted in her seat, jaw tightening. But this, I continued. Flipping to a slide of HOA invoices, is the real story. Brenda stood suddenly, her voice shrill. This is harassment. Lies. That man has been stalking me, sabotaging my vehicle. Spreading rumors, actually, I interrupted. It's called evidence. I hit play again this time, showing a clip of her midnight inspection at my trash can, flashlight in hand. Caught trespassing on my property, the room fell silent, and then the doors opened. Officer Derek Martinez from the county sheriff's office stepped inside, holding a manila folder. Sorry to interrupt, he said, voice echoing through the hall. But I have an active warrant for insurance fraud and harassment. Brenda Whitmore, you'll need to come with us. The color drained from her face faster than paint thinner. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Cameras flashed. Neighbors gasped. Some even clapped. Patricia rose from her seat and said what everyone was thinking. I moved for immediate suspension of Brenda Whitmore pending criminal investigation. Seconded, came a dozen voices. The motion passed. Unanimously. Brenda's heels scraped against the tile as the officer escorted her out, her head bowed, hands trembling. The once feared HOA enforcer now looked like a child caught stealing from the cookie jar. The crowd erupted in applause, loud, cathartic, triumphant, and standing there. Under the fluorescent lights, I realized this wasn't just my victory. It was the neighborhood's. The day we stopped letting fear write the rules. But as the cheers filled the room, I looked down at my calloused hands, still shaking slightly. Justice wasn't clean. It was messy, loud, and slow. And tomorrow, after all the noise faded, I'd still have to wake up early and take out the trash. Only this time, I'd do it smiling. Asterisk, the following morning, Pinewood Gardens woke up to the sound of silence. No Escalade engine. No screeching tires. No fake violation letters fluttering in mailboxes. Just birds, sprinklers, and the unfamiliar feeling of peace. Word spread faster than morning coffee. By noon, everyone knew Brenda Whitmore had been arrested. Fraud, insurance deception, harassment, the queen of compliance had fallen on her own sword. For the first time since moving here, I saw neighbors smiling again. People who used to avoid eye contact at HOA meetings now waved as I walked by. The tension that had choked our streets for years finally lifted, replaced by something I hadn't seen here before: community. 2 days later, I got a call from Richard Whitmore, Brenda's husband. His voice was calm but hollow, like a man who'd been living under a storm cloud too long. "Marcus," he said quietly, "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. She's moving in with her sister in Florida. I'll be signing over a check, $12,500 as restitution. I hope this ends things peacefully." There was a pause. "Richard," I said, "I don't hate her. But people have to learn there are limits, even in perfect neighborhoods." And the check arrived a week later. I didn't frame it. I didn't gloat. I deposited it straight into a fund that would later become something Brenda never could have imagined. A community scholarship for local kids pursuing trades: electricians, plumbers, carpenters. People who build instead of destroy. The HOA board held a special meeting to fill her seat. Patricia Lopez was unanimously elected the new president. Under her leadership, everything changed. New bylaws, monthly financial reports, open meetings, every contract publicly posted and reviewed by residents. We even hired an independent auditor, who discovered nearly $47,000 in missing funds from previous years, all linked to Brenda's bogus contracts. Within months, the board recovered the money and issued refund checks to every homeowner. Most were small, $200 or $300 each, but it wasn't about the amount. It was about trust. When the checks arrived, neighbors came to my house with smiles, handshakes, even homemade pies. One woman laughed, "You're the first man I've ever met who took down a dictator with a trash can." The story didn't stay contained to Pinewood Gardens. Channel 7's investigative series aired a 3-part special called Concrete Justice, the HOA scandal that shook suburbia. It went viral. Overnight, I went from anonymous electrician to local folk hero, but I didn't care about fame. What mattered was what came next. By spring, the HOA voted to keep the concrete trash can, my can, as a permanent symbol. They placed it right in the lobby of the community center, mounted on a small pedestal with a bronze plaque that read, "Property Rights Protected 2023. In honor of Marcus Holloway and the residents who refused to be bullied at every new homeowner orientation." The story is retold, how one stubborn man stood up for what was right and reminded everyone that rules mean nothing without fairness. Then, something beautiful happened. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years started organizing events, cookouts, cleanup drives, block parties. What was once a cold, rule-obsessed community became a place where people actually looked out for each other. And to celebrate the first anniversary of the Concrete Can incident, we hosted an event we called Can Day. There were bounce houses, a barbecue contest, even a small stage where Tyler's band played covers of classic rock songs from our garage playlist. Emma ran the raffle booth, laughing with her friends. For the first time, our neighborhood felt alive, not manicured, not polished, but alive. When I took the mic to thank everyone, the applause went on longer than I expected. It wasn't for me. It was for us, for the idea that even one ordinary person can stand up to abuse and win. Not through violence or revenge, but through patience, preparation, and persistence. The fallout rippled far beyond Ohio. Our case, Holloway versus Pinewood Gardens HOA, cited in a dozen state property law reforms. Lawmakers passed the HOA Accountability Act, requiring transparency and financial disclosure in all homeowner associations. Statewide, the same concrete can that once symbolized frustration now stood as a monument to reform. Contractors, attorneys, and even small-town mayors started referencing the concrete can case in speeches about ethics and fairness. And me? I went back to work. My small electrical business tripled in referrals after the story broke. Clients would shake my hand and say, "You're that guy who stood up to the HOA." I'd smile and reply, "I just fixed a wiring problem, a really expensive one." Emma's college application essay, "How My Dad Fought Corruption with Concrete," got her accepted into 3 journalism programs. Tyler started a YouTube channel called Suburban Justice, telling stories of people who stood up to unfair systems. With the same fire I'd once used to mix concrete in my garage, one quiet evening, months later, I sat on my porch, sipping coffee as the sun dipped behind the rooftops. The concrete trash can still stood proudly by the curb. A little scuffed, but undefeated, Mrs. Olivia waved from across the street. "Peaceful now, isn't it?" she called finally, I said, smiling. "Took a while, but yeah, peaceful." I thought back to the day this all began, the sound of shattering plastic, the humiliation, the anger, and I realized something simple but profound. Sometimes it hardens, slowly, quietly, until it stands strong enough that no one can knock it down. Asterisk, so. Tell me, what would you have done if your neighbor turned your driveway into a battlefield? Drop your answer in the comments. And remember, the best revenge isn't rage. It's resilience poured in concrete.